Welcome to the Undefined Leader, where we reimagine leadership, redefine work, and get curious. Derek, we made it. We're finally doing our first episode.
Finally, episode number 1.
Episode number 1. After 6 months of talking about it, I think we have like a chapter full of subjects we want to talk about. We got everything ready, and the only thing left was actually to record it. So here we are.
Yeah.
We did it. I'm proud of us.
Yeah, me too. And it's the start of a new year. So we've got that new year energy, I feel like.
Yes. And that's why today we really wanted to talk about, let's really just think about what happened in 2024. How do we learn? How do we grow? How do we show up as leaders? And then let's kind of predict 2025. Do we have any leadership goals of ourselves? Do we want to do any reflecting, showing up intentionally? Are you good with that subject today?
I think that's good. I think that leadership is going to be something very important in 2025. That's my prediction.
I hope so. We have a whole podcast about it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay, so 2024. I know this is probably a pretty broad question, but looking back of how you showed up as a leader in 2024, what are some things that you focused on and what are some things that you're proud about?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like 2024 for me was kind of about navigating change, a lot of change, of moving, and I graduated from school and changed positions at the company that I work at, and just many things. There was a lot of change. So I feel like I do feel like there is leadership in the ability to navigate through change. Because typically, like, the people around you know that you're going through change as well, and that kind of that ability to do that, to adapt, to be flexible, to learn what's not working, to be aware of maybe mistakes, or with just a lot of personal change going on, not always showing up at your best self, and being able to kind of communicate that as well of, hey, I've got a lot going on. Maybe I wasn't as prepared, or just things like that. I sort of view all of that under the umbrella of leadership. So I think for me, that was kind of a big theme personally. Alex, what are you kind of thinking for you?
I went through a lot of change as well. But really, I think personally, I focused a lot on my mental health and figuring out my why as a leader and just how I show up in the world. And because of that, I think I was able to make some changes of how I show up for my team as well. So for anyone that doesn't know, I manage a team currently. And I think one of the top things that I focused on this year was how to stop being the bottleneck. I realized I was leaving 2023, going into 2024. I could feel my motivation starting to decrease. And I felt burnt out at times, where every day ended up being almost managing instead of leading, of just the day-to-day fires, then questions, then all the emails and Slacks. And I think that was one of the biggest things I wanted to focus on going into the year, was how do I balance it? How do I enjoy leadership again? And how do I make sure that I'm not a bottleneck for the team? And so that was my major focus for the year.
Do you feel like there were specifically any trends just in leadership in general in 2024 that you were kind of aware of, or getting feedback, like, as you're doing like one-on-ones and things like that, and you're hearing people's needs and their wants, and then, interacting with other kind of leaders and stuff? Are there any like trends that you think happened in 2024 that you were aware of?
I think in 2020, a lot of our companies went virtual for the first time. And a lot of the business models had to change. The world changed. Everything changed around us. And I think as companies, we did as good of a job as we could to try to get into that virtual world. But I felt like a sense of decrease in the productivity of virtual work in 2024.
Yeah.
Just my perspective. For big reason why we're seeing these big companies are going back to a hybrid model now, or they're going back to full office. But I think after being at home for 4 years in a row for a lot of us, you started seeing some changes in how teams interacted with each other and how sometimes that could take a toll on some people.
Well, that's an interesting one because it's a big contention also too of, the companies that are doing return to office aren't necessarily viewed as heroes or viewed
Mm-hmm.
really well. And I think even some kind of view it as hidden ways to do layoffs at a company is announced like a big return to office, knowing that people are going to quit over it because it's really important to them.
True.
But like that balance that you're talking about, like you're saying, like communication's obviously harder, building relationships harder. There are a lot of things that not being in an office makes it much more difficult as well. So I think that's for sure a trend in 2024 was a lot of companies trying to navigate um, through that of what is the best way to work.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I'm really curious. I mean, we should do an episode just about work from home
Yeah.
versus being in person because I actually want to do some research on it too. But I think a lot of the times what we say as employees and people may not actually be what we need as well. Like there's a psychology experiment, right, where they show that I think there was this professor, and for one class, they said, I'm going to give you just one art, and that is it. So you make your decision from all these art pieces, which one do you want? And that is the one you walk away with, and you can't see the rest of them ever again. Versus the other one for the other class, they didn't give an option, and the teacher just gave them a piece of art. And in that experiment, they realized that the people that had the option were were unhappy, more unhappy than the ones that didn't have the option. But even knowing the results, when they asked the people, would you rather have an option or not an option? Everyone picks, I would rather have the option.
Well,
So I'm curious in like this work from home or go into the office thing, if that's also happening too, where we say, I want to be flexible, I want to work from home, I want to be able to work wherever because this is a freedom that was given to us in the last few years. And we now know what that looks like versus is that actually what we want? Is that
yeah,
actually making us happier? I'm not really sure.
that's interesting. I've was listening to a few different, you know, high profile leaders, like I think like Elon Musk and a few others that run very large companies, and they're now trying to make the case that work from home was never a business model; it was just survival.
Yeah.
It was a response to, to like you said in 2020,
Mm-hmm.
2021, and so it was intended just to be like a survival for these companies to get through that time period, but it was never supposed to be like a permanent thing or a good thing or anything like that. But you mentioned as one of your things about 2024 was like mental health, and I do think that that is a trend for sure. And I do feel though like a lot of people kind of tie their mental health into that ability to have more control over their day and over their working environment and not have to sit next to someone all day, that they don't want to like. And this is a huge leadership challenge too, to even know that maybe it's not a one size fits all uh, type of answer. Because I know that probably what I would prefer is actually, I know this for a fact because we've talked about it, what
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer is different than what you would prefer because we have different personalities and kind of different ways that we like to interact. So should like, you and I both be treated the same that way, or you said options of it's different for different people. And some people need and crave that in person, and some people feel like they're more productive without it. So that if you're a leader trying to navigate this right now, it's I'm sure it is something that a lot of leaders at companies are trying to navigate. It is tough to figure it out. Um, but listening, I think like listening to what people actually want and presenting them things like that is maybe a step towards trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be my focus for 2025 is how to create a winning team that where we feel all connected while still being remote. So I'll be doing a lot of research. So I'm sure we'll have some episodes about it and we'll talk
Yeah.
more about it too.
Well, something that I think is related to it, because being able to work effectively from home brings up the whole issue of technology. If I think of like one of the trends that I've seen with leadership in 2024, and I've read a lot too, that this is going to be like one of the big 2025 things for leadership is the leader's ability to utilize technology and utilize it effectively. And I sort of feel like my working experience, like a lot of times, like the leader or the owner of a company was the least technologically inclined of any person in the whole company. Like I remember like kind of being like the lowest person in the kind of the hierarchy, like brand new. And a lot of times it was your job to help the leader, uh, even like, hey, print out all my emails so I can read them. So they couldn't like navigate it, on their computer or things like that, or being forwarded stuff constantly for you to like go and print it out uh, for them. And I've been reading about how that is massively shifting, and some of it is with like the new generation, like Generation Z's, to where like I even saw this where a Gen Z, when they like evaluate where they're going to work, they won't work for a leader that doesn't know how to utilize technology and
Ugh.
isn't integrating technology into their leadership style. And I find that fascinating that now like even technology is kind of being considered a leadership style.
Hmm. Interesting. I haven't heard of that. It makes so much sense though, because we do have Gen Z coming into the workforce, pretty consistently starting. What year do you think they started coming into the
They like
workforce?
they were born in like 97 or 98. So it's really only been a thing of the last 5 years
5 years.
or so.
Yeah.
You know?
And up and coming. And the way that Gen Z grew up around technology versus millennials versus boomers, very different. Very different. I mean, they Gen Z typically really grew up around technology their entire life. And it's such a big part of their life right now too. So it kind of makes sense. What do you think leaders that are not Gen Z right now that realize that they need to get better at technology and adapt to that? What do you think there's some things that they can focus on in 2025?
Yeah, it's because if what we're hearing about Gen Zs is true, it's going to be really tough. You know, if you feel like you're a leader and you're not completely up to date on technology or implementing technology into your company. And I think by technology, a lot of what we're talking about right now too is like AI and different things like that help make the employees' lives easier. Is I think that there probably needs to be a dedication or some type of focus of learning it, like having that inside drive, for continuous learning, not just demanding continuous learning or learning or training from those around you, but as the leader, kind of leading in that way of there's so many resources that I mean, everything YouTube to podcasts to things where I don't think age has any type of cap on capability of learning the technology. It's more like the willingness to learn and even try to lead, like be the best on the team or be the best in the company at technology, like
Mm.
having that desire to kind of lead of, hey, here's this new technology solution. Here's some new AI that's going to make all of our lives so much easier. Let me show you how to use it. And I don't know, like how many current old school leaders, would get too excited about that idea. But if the goal is to attract and be able to lead and be effective with Gen Zs, I kind of think it's going to need to have that type of approach.
Yeah, and prioritizing it, knowing that that is something, if you are willing to do, prioritizing learning technology and researching and seeing innovative ways out there. I think it's not even just about Gen Z, though. I'm sure it's also about your business model, making sure your business and your business model still aligns in 2025, 26, 27, staying relevant. So, all right, I have a question. I'm going to circle back to which we hate saying circle back. Why did I say that? I never say that. Wait, Derek and I don't like corporate lingo. So, what should we say instead of circle back? Do you have something better?
I don't know. I knew what you meant when you said
We're
circle back.
gonna
Yeah.
walk back to what you learned in 2024 and just kind of reflecting on 24. You said that change was a huge part of your year. What are some things that you learned through change, and how do you think you actually grew as a leader from all the change happening?
Yeah. There's, I mentioned part of the change was graduating from school. And one of the things that we talked about quite a bit So it was kind of like good timing that I'm learning things in the moment that are very applicable to things that I'm going through in the real world, and kind of bridging it together. And it's kind of a buzzword, not as bad as circle back, but it's kind of a buzzword of agile leadership. I don't know if you've kind of heard that
Hmm.
thrown around. And even in like when I've read a few things about like top leadership trends for 2025 and things like that, like agile leadership comes up a lot. And I think like the concept makes a lot of sense. And it really helped me in that, agile leaders um, have the ability to adapt quickly, make decisions with limited info, but also empower those around them to make their own decisions, or to kind of figure things out, and not just take all the burden of, hey, I'm the leadership of this team, or I'm the leader of this department. It's on me to figure everything out. So the agile leader kind of recognizes where that ends, and the people around them of like, no, it's not. Yeah, I'll be the leader, and I can influence and motivate and inspire, but it's not my job to figure everything out. And I think that was like a big lesson, light bulb for me in 2024 as I reflect on it. That that's figuring everything out does not equal leadership. And actually, some of the strongest leaders let everyone else around them figure things out. And when you're going through a lot of change, that's just going to be impossible to do it all yourself. Um, Alex, have you heard agile leadership being thrown around,
Yes,
the idea of the agile
absolutely.
leader?
Yeah, every article that's was in 2024 or something. Um, yeah, I agree with you though. That was definitely my biggest takeaway too, is I don't need to know all the answers. Also, I realize that I respect leaders that have more questions than have more answers. Like I really, really enjoyed being in meetings where the leader didn't show up knowing all the answers and just downloading all the answers and this is the way, versus someone that showed up and asked questions and was curious and was humble enough to know that they may know an answer based off of their experience and there might be something better. It's kind of freeing as a leader to not needing to have all the answers and solve all the problems.
Yeah, I mean that's a scary thought. I think, to be asked a question as a leader, and I don't know, I don't know the answer to that. But I think there is leadership in that ability of, I don't know, what do you think?
Hmm. Or let's figure it
And
out together.
yeah, and I think this is an important point too, because Alex, I know for both of us, we really value vision, right, and clarity. But I think that that's not the same as having an answer to something. Where I think, and I'm curious for your take on this as well, because I know it's really important to you. But I think leaders should have vision, and kind of have clarity around that vision. But I think they can do that without having the answers to the questions. So I think, to what you said of like, hey, this is what I see us being. This is what I see us being able to accomplish. Like, this is what I think we're capable of. Well, how are we going to do that? I don't know.
Hmm.
What are your kind of thoughts around that difference between being clear about a vision but not having answers?
Yeah, I think it's very different. Because I think the vision to me isn't necessarily certainty. Like I don't need to have certainty of what the future of a business, a company, a team is going to look like. Certainty, I mean, looking for certainty is just impossible, right? You can't really be certain about anything. It's more about the why. Why should I wake up every day and come to work and work really hard for you? Why should I want to be led by you? Why should I want to go above and beyond and do the things that I'm doing? I think just understanding the bigger purpose of why we're doing what we're doing and what we're trying to get to, that to me is more the vision. It doesn't have to be like a very clear answer of this is what we're trying to do and we are going to be number one at what we do here. That's not necessarily what motivates me. It's more of that why.
Mm. That requires a lot of, like you said, curiosity,
Mhm.
but also combined with, I think, like good communication skills. Also, good communicators, I think, naturally know like questions are are a good way to communicate and things like that. But combining it with that curiosity is sometimes questions you can tell, like, sometimes you're being asked a question, but the person isn't actually that curious about your answer. It's just sort of like,
Or even
yeah,
listening to
yeah,
your
yeah.
answer.
Okay, I've got more questions, but they're not actually curious. So that ability to combine curiosity with a good communication style. Um, yeah, I personally find that extremely motivating and inspiring. Of like, yeah, no, let's figure this out together. Like that would be awesome to figure this out together. Because if a leader has all the answers and you disagree with that answer, that's that's a tough scenario, I think.
Also, you're not allowing collaboration. If you come in with an answer and you're saying this is the way, and you're not curious, you're basically communicating to the person that you're speaking to that I don't care about your opinion. This is the direction we're going, whether you're on board or not. And so then you're kind of killing innovation, collaboration, my motivation to be a part of your journey. Um, so, yeah, I think communication is definitely key. We'll probably have an episode about that at some point
Yeah.
too. Communication.
Yeah, communication is key. So we're saying 2024 out is certainty and answers, 2025 in is
Questions and
question,
curiosity.
curiosity, vision.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. I'm also going to say for 2025, I don't know what the opposite of it is yet for 2024. So maybe you can help me figure it out. Uh, Connection. I think that's going to be at least my focus going into 2025 is connection of how do we help a team feel connected to each other, to a bigger vision, to a purpose, um, to their mission, their own why. I think connection is something that I know I've been missing a lot in like my personal life and team and everything that I'm going to focus on. Um, so I don't know what the opposite of that would be for 2024.
In a bigger sense, retention has is a problem for a lot of companies, right? There was, a few years ago, the Great Resignation, or whatever they called it, where it became kind of like a countercultural movement of quitting your job. And
Mhm.
I I personally, I try to avoid LinkedIn a lot. I just think it's like the weirdest kind of like collection of
Weird.
content and things like that. But I'll open it up from time to time, and I see a lot of like posts about like glorifying quitting jobs for whatever reason, of whether it's poor leadership, or they don't value the mental health, or things like you were talking about, or just things like that, where it's now kind of like it's still a thing. And I've read some studies too that certain people are predicting that 2025 is going to bring another wave of like a great resignation as well, that they think it's just kind of like there, like all the other things that were pointing out when it was happening before were like back around in the cycle. I think to that. So it's interesting how you're talking about connectedness of why does someone quit a job? Like why would someone leave to go do that? And even part of what stood out with the Great Resignation is people quit without the next thing lined up. And I personally now know a lot of people, who have done that recently. I know you have as well. Does connectiveness play into that kind of thing at all?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you look at even the research and I think when you ask top leaders, I think 80% of them said their biggest challenge was keeping top employees and keeping employees in general. Retention is a really big issue and a big issue that leaders have to deal with a lot. But when you looked at why people were leaving and you asked the leaders, why do you think people are leaving? What do you think they said?
Hey,
Hey,
I'm off.
benefit,
Yeah.
life balance, or whatever. But when you actually ask the same people that left, their answers were, I don't feel valued. I don't feel valued by the company. I don't feel valued by my supervisor. And so there's this gap between what leaders and what employees are thinking and feeling and expecting from a business and each other. And obviously there's a misunderstanding there. There's a gap between those two things. I think also, I mean, when they're saying I don't feel valued by my company or supervisor, they're saying they're not connected to something. They don't feel listened to and appreciated and connected to another human being that's causing them to stick around as well. So I do think connection's a really big part of it.
Mm. So what as a trend for, or as a, prediction for 2025, or trying to get into things that leaders need to get better at, how do you implement, like, connectiveness is sort of, in my mind, is kind of like a thing versus like an action.
Mm-hmm.
So like, or like it's an outcome of maybe some actions that you did to
Yeah.
create the connectiveness. So how does a leader, or what do they do to create an outcome where we have connectiveness? Or how do I even communicate? Hey, come join our team because we're all connected without it
Yeah.
sounding creepy or
Yeah.
something like I don't want.
Yeah. Okay. So I think there's so many action steps that you can do. Also, I have no idea, and we're going to figure it out together during this podcast and stuff. But I do have a story and a feeling that defines connection to me and what I think it, like, for me, what the ultimate connection would look like. Can I tell you the story?
Like,
Okay. 2023, I live in New York City now, and I went to the New York City Marathon to watch them. I did not run. I was watching them in the street that was a block away from my apartment. And I felt so inspired from just standing there watching strangers run. And I left and I signed up for the Brooklyn Half Marathon and I trained and then I ran the half marathon. And then this year, I went and I watched the New York City Marathon again. And I was almost to tears. I might have even shed some tears. And I came home and I was like, why in the world am I shedding tears over people running? And why was I so inspired last time? And so I just did some reflecting. And it was the act of all the people that were there watching the runners and how everyone was supporting all these people, strangers that they didn't even know. There were people helping others push them to keep running. We were cheering for them. We're saying, you got this. Everyone had signs. Like, why? Why would that ever inspire me? Why is anyone showing up to watch strangers run? I don't know. But there was a connection there. And so much so that every single year it's one of the biggest marathons that people travel the world and want to be a part of, to run or watch. So like, why is that? I truly don't know. But that to me is like that ultimate connection where we see each other succeed at something and work hard at something. We want to see each other succeed and we're rooting for each other. And because of that, we all walk away as better people. We all walk away. Like I walked away and I signed up and I went and ran a half marathon because of strangers. And so I don't know what that answer is, but that's the feeling I'm looking for in a team. How do we do this
yeah,
and why? I don't know. Does that make sense?
it does. And I think it ties into a lot of the things, we were talking about as well, where like it seems like there's like a fairly clear why of the event, right? It's to run a race and to do something really, really hard. Everyone's doing it for different reasons. And like I see like, some type of motivation or inspiration in that, where there's kind of like a understanding of purpose, I think maybe with an event like that. And so we're having a shared experience where we all understand the purpose and, even if it is just to do something hard and to conquer something that most people won't do. And, to be amazed by that and encouraged by that, there's probably some commonality there. We all kind of get at some level what this event is taking place and why people are doing it. And I think maybe that ties in a little bit to the leader of why do we make this product? Like, why do we have customers? Why do we exist as a company, that would make us all want to like watch and cheer it on and be a part of it in some level. So I do think that ties in, and that's seems like part of the skill of the leader to be able to kind of communicate that and navigate.
Yeah. Let's figure that out at some point this year
Yeah,
of how to actually get that and feeling. And is it possible in a business? I think so.
yeah. This I think the idea of business has been beat up a lot in 2024. Just there's a lot of high profile again business leaders that are kind of I think giving business a bad name. We've got things in the news too of big businesses and things like that being the villains, right, of kind of the story. So just overall work, I think is being villainized a lot in 2024. Our jobs are kind of being villainized a little bit, and that severs connection just from the beginning of kind of like the narrative is
Them versus us.
yeah, the adversarial relationship from the very beginning. So I think you're right. That is tough to try to figure out as a leader of trying to get around all of those things and have like the clarity and like how many people do you hear anymore really kind of go down the talking points of work is inspiring, or because I react to also to like hustle culture and like it's all about the grind. Like I just don't believe in any of that stuff anymore. I think I did at one point. Um, but I think all those things sever connection because now if we don't even agree on that, like how are we going to be connected to each other?
Mm-hmm. And even maybe even the deepest level of all of that is trust, the lack of trust because of everything you just said of layoffs. And, you just hear all these things that are happening that employees don't trust companies and businesses anymore to take care of them. And so, like in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? What's the very first thing that you need is the safety needs. And so, if we don't feel that our safety needs are going to be met, then how in the world could we get all the way to self esteem and connection when I don't even trust that I might have a job tomorrow or not? So maybe that's what's also in 2025, building trust.
Building trust, yeah. Um, trust is funny. Trust is definitely a very funny thing. And in talking to other leaders and like running, leadership training and classes and things for leaders, you'll hear the feedback of, yeah, I don't think my team trusts me. Like if they're being like self-aware or things like that, or I haven't done a good job of building trust or other sentiments like that. And kind of a question I like to throw back is, well, do you trust them? And isn't trust like supposed to be a two-way thing? It's not really
Mm-hmm.
supposed to exist as a one-way ask of I need you to trust me. It's sort of like the way that you trust me is I'll trust you. I'll go first. I'll trust you. And then you can it's like a active action of you got to trust to be trusted. And I think I just feel like a lot of times I've been so guilty of this as well. Of it's a reactive thing. I'm waiting for them to trust me, or I'm waiting for us to build trust versus a very like proactive concept.
Okay, so 2025, being proactive of trusting and building trust.
And and I think maybe a lot of leaders need to get over some limiting beliefs. Well, I'm not going to trust until I'm given a reason to trust, or all those type of things. Just go first. Just go first. Yeah, you're probably going to get burned a lot too, but how are you going to build that connectiveness that you're talking about if you're not willing to trust them?
Absolutely. That just reminded me, Derek, of uh we went to a restaurant once and our server was amazing at her job. She was so good. And I remember the manager was walking around and I actually went out of my way to the manager and I said, I just want to let you know that our server is amazing at what she does. I am so happy with the service and she's doing an amazing job. His answer was, well, it's her first day. Let's see how it actually goes a week later. And I was like, oh, that's that's tough. And my first reaction when he said that was, I bet next time I come here, she's not going to be here. 100% she is going to quit or fired or something, because what that sentence just told me is that he doesn't trust her. The manager doesn't trust that the person they hired will do a good job, stay consistent, still be a good job. And instead of praising her and motivating her and making sure that she is consistent, she was basically betting against her. And guess what happened? Next time I went there, she wasn't there anymore. Good for her for leaving too. So
Yeah. Well, why would you hire someone you don't trust?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
you begin with that, like, well, we'll wait and see if I can trust them or not. Yeah, that's a good example there. Yeah, I would have made that prediction as well. This will never work.
yeah,
Um, and
absolutely.
yeah, and so a lot of companies struggle with retention and keeping employees and feeling like employees aren't loyal. That's always the other perspective of this whole
Mm-hmm,
thing. Well, employees just aren't loyal. But I
mm-hmm,
think I think people want to be loyal. I don't think like disloyalty is an inherent default setting that most people have. I think they're given a reason to leave or to do that or to not stick around. Um, yeah, and trust and loyalty, it's all the connectiveness, right? That's our thing. Those two things I think are connected together.
I think so too. No one wakes up thinking, you know what? I'm going to do the worst job I possibly can today. I'm really going to make sure that nothing goes well. Like, as humans, we want to do well and we want people to trust us and believe in us and we want to stay there and be connected. So I agree. All right. Anything else going into 2025 that you think will be a trend or something that we should keep our eye on?
I think I think one other thing for sure, that I've just kind of noticed a lot and looking in research. If you think about if you're a company that wants to hire, or again the retention, you want to keep the people that you have, like the benefits that you offer. So so maybe you are offering the benefit of working from home or the vacation time or other things like that. I just feel like a big trend in 2025 is going to be personal development, and I think this is like a bigger piece of a culture of continuous learning. And specifically as it relates to the leader, so I think like a lot of companies have sort of figured this out and they talk the talk, but it's the leading by example. Like, what is that leader doing for continuous development and personal development? Is that leader leading the way in this? Is that leader listening to podcasts? Are they reading books? Are they doing things to show everyone else that I'm not perfect? It's right because I sort of feel like it creates this setting of like, if you guys just would learn more, we want to be in this position we are. Like, I'm the leader. I know what I need to know. And so I think for 2025, like the leader goes first in personal development and focuses on themselves first to be able to authentically lead a culture of personal development where we all develop and grow versus just trying to like push it on everyone else
Yeah.
in the group.
That makes sense. Talk the talk, walk the walk thing.
It is.
Sounds good
It
though.
is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, good. Yeah, I like that. I my last prediction for 2025 is empathy. I'm hearing so many people right now saying, "Oh, well, Gen Z is coming into work and they don't even know how to dress. Oh, they're so unprofessional. Oh, they're so lazy. Oh, they don't understand what professionalism is. Oh, like all these different things." And then on the other side, I'm hearing Gen Z saying, why in the world is this company doing it this way? Why are they printing their emails and reading it versus why wouldn't you just do it this way? Right. And they're speaking up and saying, hey, there might be a better way. And I see this huge gap between those two mindsets. And we're going to learn how to live and work together. And in order for that to happen, I think we need some empathy of understanding where we're coming from each other, coupled with everything else we talked about today: curiosity, leaders going first, authenticity, and all of that.
Empathy's, I like that. And empathy is super important. I think it's highly valued. I also think it's a skill, not a default setting. Obviously, I think some people are naturally more empathetic than others, but I think it kind of ties into that continuous learning and personal development. on if for a leader, if they recognize maybe they lack in those areas, what are you going to do about it? And
Hmm.
what are you going to visibly do about it? To show that you recognize that this is an area of personal development, that you need to add more empathy, and even be open to the feedback of, hey, that wasn't very empathetic.
Yep. Step one, self-awareness, even knowing how you're showing up.
Yeah. Well, Alex, I think we've gone through kind of a list of what's out, what's in, for sure. Things that a lot of just things that I know I need to work on and I want to get better at myself as a leader. Any last, Alex? Any last words you want to add to anyone listening to this
No,
before
I'm
we?
just really excited to be curious with all you guys this year. And we have our Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. So obviously, we're starting from scratch. If there's anything that you guys are curious about, DM us, let us know what you want us to research and think about and talk about. And I'm excited for this journey for us.
Yeah, please subscribe to us where you're listening to this. Subscribe so you get alerted for more episodes. Please share them with your friends, with your colleagues. If you think that someone could benefit from listening to this conversation, please share them. Follow us on Instagram. And Alex, I'm curious what we're going to talk about next.
Me too.
Yeah. Like literally,
I
just
have no idea. We'll
they
figure it
can
out.
subscribe and they can find out.
There we go. Hey, Derek,
Yeah.
we just finished our first episode. High five.
Yeah. All right. We're doing it. We're crushing 2025 so far.